Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Wednesday night. It's All Hallows Eve. We have Halloween on Thursday, October 31st. I'm joined by one Adam ShipMyMoney Scherer. Adam, when was the last time you dressed up for Halloween?
I have no idea.
I can't remember.
Definitely in law school. So that would have been 2015. I don't know if I have since then.
I don't know that I have I'm trying to think since I moved out here to Virginia. So that's been at least 10 years, but I've been to a few parties where I'd wear costumes, like, kids' birthday parties and stuff. And, it's like, oh, you wear this and oh, you wear that when they're little because they have princess parties or whatever. So, yeah, that was, or what do they call it? Sports theme parties. So, but no, I don't think I've done a Halloween costume. I used to get totally into it. And
I never really did.
oh, it was always fun. We had, one year I was a trailer park woman, so I didn't shave. Had nice, wore a big muumuu. I had curlers in my hair, pink lipstick, and I carried a National Enquirer under my arm and had oh shoot! Remember Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes? I had one of those under the other arm, an envelope saying I could have won $1 million. Yes. There are no pictures. That was the beauty of me doing this. There were no pictures back then, Adam.
When I was, I don't know, like a sophomore in high school, I went to a Halloween party as a cheerleader, and there are pictures. And like once every few years, one of the girls that I was with will post it on Instagram, and it always catches me by surprise somehow.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, there's a couple Polaroids here and there, but I lucked out. Didn't have to worry about that. Most of my embarrassing stuff is only told in stories these days. There is not much evidence, video or otherwise. But in any event, we've got a 3-gamer here. We do have NFL football coming in on Thursday night, starting off week, oh goodness, what is it? Week 9, I believe. So we're at basically the halfway point there of the regular season. We just had the trade deadline that completed on Tuesday. And we've got NHL in full swing. So we've got you covered here at Osmo.com. Definitely check us out. A lot of free content on YouTube and in front of the paywall. And of course, on this podcast stream, if you're listening to it on your favorite podcast provider or on YouTube, you can always subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up and the notification bell. Is what I meant to say. Well, hit the thumbs up anyway, but the notifications bell will ding every time we go live or post new content, which is happening constantly. All right, Adam, it's a 3-gamer. We'll hit this. It won't be one of our longer podcasts, but not to fear. At various points, we will have longer ones. We've, of course, are presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. We'll talk about them shortly, but in the meantime, we've got a few guys that are dinged up. We have Kawhi Leonard should be back. He was out on Wednesday night. Apparently, he won't be playing in some back-to-backs this season. Drew Holiday should be returning. He is coming off a sore knee. We've got DeAndre Hunter, who's had some sort of dental surgery, but he should be back. DeJounte Murray back-to-back. This is the first one. They've said they're going to take it easy with him a little bit. He missed almost all of last season, if not all of last season, due to his injury. James Johnson rounding into shape. Adam, see what I did there?
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, if he's out of the doghouse, he might play. He might be dressed. Who knows? And then the other guy that's a little banged up, Rodney Magruder, is in the mix there. If you are listening to this and have not seen Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns on Wednesday night, Adam, can you give a little description? I haven't seen it yet, but can you give a little description of what you saw out there on the I'm assuming Twitter?
Yeah, I haven't seen much of it. All I saw was that Ben Simmons had Towns in a headlock at the end, and it definitely looks like he made Towns tap out before he let go of him. So that's all I've seen so far.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the Adam Scherer dressed up literally as a cheerleader. Adam, you sent me this photo. Highest bidder gets it. You guys can have it as a Twitter avatar.
Yeah, I didn't think that one through.
We'll have to see what happens. But if your name rhymes with CJ, give me a call. I've got some leverage here for you. But in any event, let's get on to our first game. We'll go game by game here. We've got 3 of them. Miami is at Atlanta. You've got Denver at New Orleans, and then San Antonio at the Clippers. Clippers are on a back-to-back. I don't believe anybody else is, if I remember, because these days are already starting to run together. Nope, nobody else is. Let's start off with that Miami at Atlanta game. We saw Jimmy Butler come into the mix, shake things up a little bit here. Miami is 6-point road favorites in Atlanta. Start us off with your Jimmy Butler thoughts.
He looked reasonably good in the first game. I still think that it's going to be kind of tough to know exactly what to expect from him. He played 3 preseason games, only had a 20.6% usage rate. There's going to be games where I think he gets a lot of usage, especially when they're competitive down the stretch. But other games, he can still kind of defer sometimes to guys like Tyler Hero or Nunn or Dragic or Winslow or Bam, depending on the game. There's not one dominant scorer on this team, but there are certainly plenty of mouths to feed if he so chooses. So I think the best approach is that while he's still pretty inexpensive, he went from 7,700 on DraftKings to 8,200. He's still a pretty high floor play because he's going to be really involved. He's going to play probably like 34, 35 minutes. It's just, I think the biggest question is how much usage can we project him for on a nightly basis?
All right. And then did you, sorry, I was busy making sure I saved this picture of yours just for future use. I'll put it with the rest of the blackmail file I have. Not on you. I've got a variety of people that have sent me goofy stuff. We'll just tuck that away. But in looking at the game, is with regards to Nunn and some of their other young guys, did anyone in particular take a backseat there, or was it just kind of little chunks here and there taken away from people's rotation to fit Butler back in?
I think it was mostly the latter. It's kind of hard to tell because the game wasn't
Miami.
Well, yeah, that and the game wasn't really competitive in the second half. One thing that stood out was Tyler Hero still got up plenty of shots. He came off the bench, but also played. He closed alongside Butler in both halves, so that was interesting to see. Kendrick Nunn played 30 minutes as expected. He did okay, but didn't do as well as he had been, which isn't surprising. Justice Winslow didn't so it's weird, Justice Winslow didn't close, but there was no real reason for him to come back in for his last stint up by 20 points. So I think that for the most part, the guys that you would expect to get run still got their run. Bam played 33 minutes as well.
All right. And then of course this obviously this is the well, not obviously, but it's the home and home. These two teams were the teams that last played each other on the 29th. With regards to, and I'm looking here, so Trae Young went out at the beginning of the second quarter. That's when he got injured. I'm just trying to see here. It doesn't look like he really had I'm looking at the popcorn machine, but it doesn't look like he had a true direct replacement there. Cam Reddish saw about the time that we expected, because they had said that his minutes were going to be increasing. He did better than I thought he was going to do. You still didn't have to have him to be taking victory laps on Twitter, or screenshots on Twitter, but it worked out a little better for him than I thought it would. Do you think he is one of the beneficiaries, maybe with some more assists or at least opportunities in the absence of Trae Young, or is this just going to put a damper on everything?
I think it's going to make the offense kind of stagnant. There's just not really a lot of scoring here. I think John Collins' usage is going to go up a lot. I think that DeAndre Bembry will have an opportunity to pick up more assists. He started the second half with Young out. I expect that he'll start this game as well, unless we hear otherwise. He's capable of producing. His price tag jumped very quickly on DraftKings, all the way up to 4,700. Cam Reddish jumped to 4,600. Those are like 50% increases on those guys with Young out. So on a 3-game slate, they're still fine, but it's not like there's a huge inefficiency there in their salaries. I think that Collins probably is the biggest beneficiary in terms of production. Maybe Jabari Parker plays a little bit more or gets more shots up as well.
All right. This may be I wanted to make sure I had one last hurrah in getting Vinsanity, a little Vince Carter on my teams just for old time's sake. Adam, this very well could be the night to do it. It's a 3-game slate. We're going to need some sort of cheapies, and he is going to qualify for that. He will probably get a ceremonial 18 to 20 minutes. Most games that he is able to suit up this season. I'm just seeing here if we have any other news. So for fun, he started out in 1999. That was his, or 1998-99 season was his first. He played with Toronto. I'm just seeing if I can easily find one of their. Okay, here's some of the players he played with: Tracy McGrady, his cousin, obviously; Charles Oakley, Alvin Williams, D Brown. Remember D Brown with the blindfolded dunk?
I do, yeah.
Vaguely. Doug Christie, better known for his wife on Basketball Wives. Sean Marks, he was a rookie that year as well. Goodness gracious, that was a long time ago. But I'm assuming he was. When did Jordan last play?
2001, 2003.
All right, so Vince Carter, one of the last players to still actually be active from when Jordan played his second stint. He missed the first one. That was the first year Jordan retired. Jordan was out 3 years and then came back and played 2 with the Wizards there. So, all right, back to present day. But it's just kind of fun seeing someone that's lasted this long. Vince Carter did say he wanted to try to play in all 82 games this year if he could, and he has said it will be his last season. He just
didn't he say that last year too?
No, he said he wouldn't comment on it.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
And once he made it through healthy, he was like, I'd like to do one more. But he did say, hey, I get it. He goes, I'm coming off the bench. I'm not going to play every night. I'm here to help out the young guys, etc. And he said, I just love playing basketball. So
yeah, so he seems like a good guy about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but oh boy, he had some fun controversies back in earlier in his career about dedication and such. And it's kind of like, I think he was dedicated because he the night I think it was him the night before one of the like NBA Finals or Eastern Conference Finals games, he went and picked up his diploma. Went to the graduation. Oh, he was from North Carolina, so he went to Chapel Hill, and people freaked out about it. It's like, well, that.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
It's like, what's wrong with it? I mean, God, Jordan was going to Vegas between games. And who knows what Dennis Rodman was doing. So come on, cut the guy some slack. In any event, looking here at Atlanta, if they're going to be bogged down, it's really not going to be helping a lot of people. They do have, we have over-unders for 2 of the games, 216 for them. San Antonio at the Clippers is 225.5, and then we're still waiting for the Denver New Orleans ones. So while it's the lower one, there still will be value, there still will be minutes, but it's hard to really like anybody from this team in particular, depending on what else we find out from a news standpoint. So let's move on to our next game, unless you have anything else you'd like to add.
I do not.
All right, Denver at New Orleans. Nikola Jokic managed to get his triple-double on the nose in his last appearance. 10 boards, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds. And it was like 2 minutes, 45 seconds to go, and he needed 2 rebounds. He got them. So yay for DFS, but that wasn't exactly the line we were hoping for. We should have Drew Holiday back. He was dealing with a knee sprain. So this should make for a more competitive game. I suspect that until he's official, that's probably why this line isn't posted yet. Start us off here with Denver, and let's just assume Drew Holiday is going to play, because I've looked it up at 2 different spots, and it says he's likely to play.
Yeah, he said he was expecting to play. Denver is really interesting on these, especially on these short slates. I talked about it yesterday or Tuesday with Laffy. On the bigger slates, a lot of times, with the exception of Jokic, we don't really have that much interest in Denver because they're such a good team and they have so many good players coming off the bench in addition to their starters that it can be tough to really trust the minutes that you're getting from some guys. But on the 3-game slates, it makes it really interesting because when you look at their rotations, everyone for the most part has a direct backup, and the rotations are very, very easy to predict in terms of who's playing what positions. There's kind of a sliding scale, though, where because the backups are so good, sometimes Millsap's going to play like 26 minutes and Grant's going to play 22. Sometimes Millsap's going to play 32 and Grant's going to play 16, like we saw against the Mavericks. But it makes it so on 3-game slates, you can kind of over project, or that's not the right word. You can kind of project those guys to the upper end of what they can possibly get, and then use the rules in Fantasy Cruncher to make sure that you're not getting them in the same lineups, but it'll let you get over the field on the really low owned bench guys who have a really clear path to how they help you win a tournament. It's not like they're going to play 24 minutes every slate or every game. But when you look at guys off the bench, like there's an easier way or a better chance that someone like Malik Beasley or Jeremy Grant or Mason Plumlee plays 5 to 10 minutes more than the median projection than there is for most other players. And in addition to that, those guys are productive on a per minute basis. So on teams where I don't have Jokic, I think having Plumlee is a good idea, because all it takes is foul trouble for Jokic, and suddenly very low on Plumlee is getting 5 extra minutes. So I think Denver gives you the opportunity to get really creative on these 3-game slates.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point, and that's one of the ones that I had called out in our last cash game article, and that's a free article that's in front of the paywall every single day. I will be writing that. If we get some of the tiny slates, I may not get to it, but there will definitely be one up for Thursday. But what I do at the top is I give the promo code, password, and instructions on how to get your deposit bonus over there at Yahoo, up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which you can use for immediate entry into any contest. And then we'll match up to $30 of your first DFS deposit if you follow those instructions. At the end of the article, every day I've been giving a Fantasy Cruncher tip of the day, where I've been putting up some screenshots and talking about different ways to build rules. And I can't remember if I did it that day or 2 days ago, but I've got about a dozen of them I'll cycle through and utilize at different points in time. But I have talked about ways to set your player pools in your group so you don't have to worry about overlap. Now, for something that's something like Denver, you can actually set up rules or groups, and then there's a little checkbox at the bottom of the group section, and you can ask it to save that rule for different games. So the one I used to describe, I talked about limiting the New Orleans players. I also talked about limiting Dallas players, just because they have a lot of redundancy. So I would say, I don't want more than 2 of these guys. What Adam's kind of describing here is you may want to look 1 for 1 with some of the backups and just say, hey, I don't want to play Jokic and Grant in the same, I don't want to play Jokic and, why am I like, thank you. I was stuck on Alex Len. I don't want to play Jokic and Plumlee. I don't want to play Grant and Millsap. I don't want to play, one of Beasley and Harris or however you figure out those guys are backing each other up. But then on these small slates, you can just say, hey, load saved group, and you don't have to redo it. And all of a sudden, you've saved time, and 2, you can easily not have to worry about, I've got this great lineup, and then have conflicting players who are going to split the 48 minutes. Maybe you would rather have, if you had Millsap, you wouldn't want Grant. Maybe you'd want Millsap and Morris, or maybe you want Harris and Grant. And that way you capitalize on not having guys that are each other's direct backups. Is that kind of what you're going for, Adam?
Yeah, it's just all about giving each lineup that you make a clear way to win a tournament. And that doesn't always mean having the best medium projection guys, especially on these shorter slates. Nikola Jokic obviously is going to be a great medium projected play, and Mason Plumlee's not, because most of the time Plumlee's going to play 14 minutes and Jokic is going to play 34. But within one lineup, if you just have Plumlee in there on a short slate, he can still win you a tournament, because he has the ability to play more minutes if Jokic gets in foul trouble. You just obviously don't want them together, because if Jokic gets in foul trouble, that's the only way Plumlee gets more minutes, and it's hurting your team if you have both.
Yep. And then one other thing I have not done, because of the way these sort of hockey line changes have been working out, are in prior years I've said I don't want Will Barton and Gary Harris on the same lineup, because the way their lineups have been constructed in prior years, they had a lot more overlap with each other. Now they don't. They both have their carved out starting roles. They both have specific things that they do out there on the court, so they don't necessarily, outside of a shot attempt perspective, cut into each other like they used to quite a bit. They've now moved into the avant-garde group, and then the understudies are a different group of guys now. So it's just things change throughout the years. Anything else you want to mention on Denver, or would you like to break down a little bit of New Orleans here, assuming that we do get Jrue Holiday back?
Yeah, I think we can go over to the New Orleans side. Jrue coming back obviously will have a giant effect on the Pelicans. He's going to probably take some minutes away from Josh Hart, or at least make his minutes less stable. We saw even before Holiday got hurt, Hart was playing big minutes, but normally he was closing out the game because he was playing really well. I think that those minutes are a little bit less secure. I think you probably get like 28 for Hart, 28 minutes. Kenrich Williams probably loses a few minutes. It really just makes everyone less appealing. Lonzo still is a reasonable option because his role is more or less independent of Drew. It's a step backwards for Brandon Ingram, who again, he still has a big role in this team. He's getting a lot of rebound opportunities. He's one of the highest usage players, but Drew being out there will not only take some shots away from Ingram, but it also takes away some ball handling responsibility. And we also had seen Alvin Gentry running Ingram as kind of the backup point guard with the second unit. In the last game Holiday played, that wasn't the case. So I think maybe you don't get the bench minutes from Ingram either.
Yeah, and that's a good one to call out there. Guys that make me nervous. Well, we know Josh Hart's going to take a bit of a cut. I'm okay with Kenrich Williams. His role sort of seems somewhat secure. JJ Redick's one of the guys that make me nervous. Just less shots to go around, and he's one of those guys that's going to be entirely dependent on his shot falling to have value. This is going to be a shorter slate. He has 4,200 on DraftKings. That's a reasonable price point. One thing you're going to hear some of your analysts say that, he won't kill you at that price. The way scoring has been, as sharp as the field has been, you really are, even on a night like this 3-game slate, you're still going to need to average 40 fantasy points per spot just using DK scoring to be able to be in the top 1%. A guy that has a bad night or does not have access, in this case, to at least low to mid 30s is actually going to hurt you if that upside is not part of a reasonable outcome. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to get there, but how often do we see Redick, surpassing 30 fantasy points? It's a tough one. So just be careful with the formats of games that you're playing. If you're in smaller fields or head-to-heads, sure, Redick's fine. He's got an adequate floor, but it's not the same role that he had last year. It's not the same role that he had many years in with the Clippers. It's a different role, and it just makes me nervous looking at guys like that. Same thing with Jahlil Okafor. Anything you want to talk about here about the secondary players?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
All right, on to our final game. This should be an intriguing one here. So Kawhi Leonard should be back. Clippers. Almost called them the Chargers. There's too many LACs. And I almost just called them the Chargers again. Good God. The Clippers should have Kawhi Leonard back. He's already in load management mode. DeJounte Murray should be returning as well. So this one should be a nicely contested game. Clippers are favored by 5, but I think this will be a close one down to the wire, which actually bodes well for the closing units or the primary players. Adam, who would you like to focus on from the Spurs?
Oh man, it's always Aldridge and DeRozan. They're both really inexpensive as well. DeRozan, I posted on Twitter I didn't really mean a whole lot by it. It was just an interesting stat that I noticed while I was looking up some other stuff. But as of, I think it was Tuesday, I posted it. DeRozan had the, I think, second most drives per game in the NBA. And he was passing on like 50% of those, but he was only averaging 0.3 assists per game. He's also, at that point, he was also only averaging about 6.7 potential assists per game. So, one potential takeaway is
0.3 assists per game on the dribble drive
off
passes.
The drive. Yeah, off the drive.
Not like 0.3 per dribble drive. 0.3 for the entire. Okay.
Yeah, but he was driving like 20 times per game, passing 9 to 10 times.
So it would take him 3 games to get 1 assist off that method.
Right. So I think there's a couple of takeaways there. For one, guys probably aren't knocking down shots, but 2, when you look at the potential assists, he's probably either making like bailout passes more so than driving and hitting an open guy, or they're just swinging the ball after he kicks it out. I don't think there's a really huge fantasy takeaway there other than DeRozan still has the ball in his hands a ton. His price tag's really cheap. Yes, he's been somewhat disappointing, but it's still a really cheap DeRozan. It's a cheap Aldridge against the front court that he should be able to have some success against. So I still think that's where you start with San Antonio.
All right. Let's see. With their secondary guys, I was looking a little bit. So DeJounte Murray actually, in his first, I'm calling up his game log so I don't overly misquote this. In his first couple games, he had been just nailing all of his shots. Has that continued? No, the field goals have come down a little bit, but he has taken 10, 15, and 8 field goals, so that is nice. Getting to the line only a couple times per game. And then he's been getting some solid hustle helper stats, meaning he's averaging about 7.5 rebounds per game. Let's see, it looks like about 6 assists per game, and then 2 steals per game. So solid numbers there across the board. The price varies across the different sites. That makes it a little bit tricky, but he's doing all of this in 22, 23 minutes per game. If that ticks up a little bit at all, which we think it will start to do so just as he gets his sea legs under him, he's someone that has additional upside potential available. Now it's he's priced in for that median production, which has been damn impressive in 24 minutes per game. But that's more like production that should take 28 minutes a game. So we'll, it's kind of the yin and yang of everything here, but he's someone I like for a little bit of upside. Rudy Gay at 4,500, Derek White at 44, Bryn Forbes at 41. Those guys are all reasonably priced, but Adam, what the hell is their role going to be? And then you've got Patty Mills, the ghost of Marco Bellinelli on Halloween, and Trey Lyles. There is a deep bench here, and we know that Coach Popovich likes to mix and match.
Yeah, not a whole lot else that you're going to be confident in. Obviously, you can rotate these guys through a bunch of, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, but beyond DeRozan, beyond Aldridge, it's really tough to trust anyone in particular. Sometimes Rudy Gay plays 26 minutes, sometimes he plays 20. We know that DeJounte Murray is on a minutes limit. He's not going to get more than like 24 minutes. So that takes away some of his appeal. Derek White, probably, 24 to 26 minutes. It's really tough to trust any of these guys outside of DeRozan and Aldridge.
All right. On the back-to-back here, who catches your eye for the Clippers?
Well, Kawhi should be in, or is expected to be in. So he obviously didn't play yesterday. He's also expensive. I think most people know how I feel about Kawhi. DraftKings, he's not normally someone that I get to because when you start comparing him across all the positions, it's not really that easy to get there. On FanDuel, he's normally more valuable because of the position. But I think that, also Lou Williams and Harrell still are affordably priced, coming off the bench, playing together. Harrell's minutes fluctuating anywhere from like 28 to 36 in normal games. But this is a matchup against the Spurs where he should be able to, he doesn't match up poorly at least. So I think that I like Harrell and Lou Will to some extent.
All right. Of the back end guys, meaning JaMychal Green, Pat Patterson, Zubac, Harkless, anybody stand out, or are these guys just similar versions of what we went through with Denver?
Similar versions to what we went through with Denver.
Yeah. Less hockey line changes, slightly less direct backups, but things get a little dicey here because the starters give way to the second unit so much there with Harrell and Lou Williams, and then they are in the closing unit, so it makes it a little tricky here and there. I wouldn't really want more than one of those guys, that grouping there of Shamet, Zubac, Harkless, and Green, and Patterson. Patrick Beverley's the one guy I'll give a pass to. I don't mind him at all at 4,900 there on DK. We do know he does have the ability to pop for 35 plus fantasy points at any given time. Has a solid floor. He's going to be the starter. There are a lot of guys that can handle the ball when he's on the court, especially towards the end of games, if Lou's out there, if Kawhi's out there, etc. So his assists aren't necessarily going to be great, but he is there for steals, and he does do a good job of rebounding. So if his shot's falling and he's getting a few other categories there, he does have the ability to pop for a decent score, unlike some of the other guys we mentioned earlier in the podcast. I'm going to go over here to the old Yahoo, Adam, unless there's anything else you want to mention from this game.
Nope.
So let's go at the top end of Yahoo, kind of do what we did last time. Got some interesting feedback from that. So it looks like Yahoo's capping their players. I haven't seen, to my knowledge, anybody over $54. On Thursday, on our shorter slate here, they've kind of tamped things down a little bit. They've got Jokic at 45, Drew Holiday at 47, and nobody else is over, Kawhi at 47, and then Drew Holiday is at 35. And then Ingram is at 36. Do any of those guys stand out for you? I'm assuming it's going to be Jokic.
Yeah, I think Jokic does.
All right. And then if we look kind of towards let's go to the price per dollar plays. So some of our cheap ones, you've got Cam Reddish at 10, DeAndre Bembry at 11, Forbes at 10, Zubac at 11. Any of those names spark any interest? For me, it's Bembry at 11.
Yeah, I'll say Bembry at 11 just because he'll at least have the opportunity. Reddish, it's kind of the same thing, but I think that Bembry would be the one that I slightly prefer. Alex Len also, people didn't play him last 3 game slate. I don't know if they will here. He's obviously risky. The minutes are all over the place, but
Yeah.
on a 3 game slate, we at least know that if he gets the minutes, he'll be productive.
Yeah, and we do get on Yahoo. You do have a center spot and a utility spot, so you have a little bit of flexibility there. So you can play 2 centers. They do not have multi-position eligibility. Last guy I was going to throw out there was Tyler Hero. You mentioned he's taken a lot of shots. He's 16 on this particular slate. Would you want to take a chance for that? 4-game stretch that we've seen of his projected shooting quantity. Is it worth risking it at 16?
Yeah, I think that's fine. He played well alongside Butler in the preseason. He played really well in the first game with Butler back. I don't necessarily want to say that Butler, is going to make him better all season long, but he at least has shown that he's capable of playing alongside him.
Excellent. All right, with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS on Twitter. I'm at EMac DFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.